Hey guys, welcome to the daily analysis. It is Wednesday, January 16th, and we're getting relatively close to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time over here. And so if you guys were watching the markets today, you know that a lot of things reversed. Pretty rough day for me personally, as I got smashed on my pound US dollar, and also I got trekked on my US yen, stopped me out and reversed pretty close to the area of my stop loss. So I got a little beat up. I did jump back into a different yen trade, and I'm up pretty nicely on that one. So I'll kind of share my mindset on that with you. And then obviously we'll talk about the pound and if we think it's going to continue the breakout that it's looking to do right now, and cover other major pairs. So I think there's definitely some good stuff to cover in the analysis, and in spite of it crushing me in a few areas, I still think that there's some pretty profitable market conditions to take advantage of, and so we will talk about those as soon as we cover our news and then our terms. Okay guys, and for news tomorrow there is a decent amount of events. Obviously the main thing that we typically look at on a Thursday is that unemployment claims announcement, which also comes with building permits, and so that's one that can definitely affect the market. If that unemployment number comes out way off what's expected, we could definitely see some pretty big movement in the market. And so at 8:30 a.m., that's Eastern Standard Time, especially if you have any U.S. dollar crosses, you probably want to be looking at the charts and being careful with what you have on the table at that point. Later on, we do have more U.S. dollar news. That's the Philly Fed Manufacturing Index at 10 a.m. And then we have some New Zealand news at 4:45 p.m. So don't forget about that one. Kind of an irregular event, I guess I would call it, at 4:45 for the New Zealand. So don't ignore that one if you have any odd or New Zealand trades on the table, because that could certainly shake things up. Okay, guys, so that's your red tag stuff. Nothing London session, nothing really before 8:30 that hits that hits hard at all. So should be smooth sailing until 8:30 when that unemployment claims announcement comes out. Alright, so that is our news. Now I'm going to slide over to our terms real quickly. Okay guys, and then the terms, they just basically say that we're not licensed or qualified to be investment advisors. We're not telling you how to risk your money, what to do with your live trading account. This is just, our version of the market, our personal opinions and what we notice about it. It's not to be taken as investment advice on your behalf. Okay, so it's important to understand that the U.S. government is pretty strict about what they allow non-licensed people to do, and so we just want to be very clear as to what the daily analysis is all about. Alright guys, the first thing I want to share with you is this EuroCAD. We are in a nice up move on this EuroCAD, pretty consistent trend line. You can see where it got more consistent was right here, which is about 125.5. Started moving toward these higher highs and more consistent movements, built a pretty nice base here, and obviously launched off that with two very steep daily bars, as you can see. Now what's interesting to note is that we're not at a new high at this point. It came a little bit short of our previous high, and now we had a pretty decent bar yesterday and somewhat of a stall bar today. So two kind of different situations we have on the EuroCAD, and I think both are probably trade worthy. One is that if you have a little base under here and this thing starts going up, you may be able to take a long if you're a short-term trader just to the new high. But if you're looking for the previous high, but if you're like me and you want to catch some more profit, maybe if this thing starts moving up, you want to see if it's going to go up and get to a new high and kind of continue the slope of this uptrend, which is something that's definitely possible. So that's one thing to look at. Now on the flip side, because this is not a new high, and you can see that how steep the crash was last time on the way back to this trend line, you might be thinking that the bears are kind of taking over here and it's going to drop pretty quick again, and so any bearish move, anything that breaks out of the bottom of this base, might be tradable to the downside, and I would think that that's definitely possible. So to me, the EuroCAD is a nice little setup here because we're in the middle in a pretty nice price area where the market can either go up or down, and either way has a little bit of room to trade with. And so for me, I'm going to be looking at this EuroCAD pretty closely and see if there's a way I can jump on long or short depending on exactly how price action sets up. Now you can see the euro dollar also in a pretty consistent uptrend. However, we're at the top area here. It's a little bit steeper of an uptrend, so for that reason, I don't like the idea of shorting it like I would perhaps on the euro CAD. So for me, this is just the one, and I've said this before, waiting till it gets back in our buy zone anywhere kind of in the range near this trend line, and then looking to take it back long, which is what I'm going to do with the euro dollar, assuming that it does come back, test that area, and give us a nice price action signal back to the upside. Now the pound, a little bit different situation because obviously we had a very strong break. It's not just kind of moving in any kind of trending pattern. Pretty strong break to the downside, which again was unfortunate because I was long down here looking for a move back up to 163, and instead got my stop loss crushed right out from under me, which is unfortunate. But as you can see, it is moving down. There's a few things we have to look out for. Number one, it's still not very far beyond just this previous low, and so you want to watch out for that if you're thinking long-term short. And then again, this area kind of up in here, we're right near the bottoms here that kind of correspond here. So there is a lot of support that's built up in some random areas, all close together in that 160 area. And so I'd want a pretty clear break of 160 before thinking short. Once you break that level, there's a point here. Obviously, it's a trend line area where it stopped, went up before. That's somewhat of support, but really our main area is the top here, a few pips lower. And so if it could break and make any kind of move toward this area, which is like 157.75, we could have a great short opportunity on the pound into that area. And so that is definitely something that I would be interested in taking, just depending on if we get that momentum breaking all the way through 160. And so that's one I'll be watching and definitely keep you updated on. Now the other trade that got me was the US yen. It popped down pretty sharply earlier today, came right near my stop loss, definitely enough to stop me out, and then ended up looking like it's going to close right back above this area in somewhat of a long position, with a pin bar looking like it might end up heading back up, at least to the high here, and then obviously if you're looking for that great trade, way higher. And so for me, I'm not necessarily convinced that the yen is going to continue to weaken and drive these pairs up. But I think that if the yen does want to continue to weaken, there's still a lot of room for it to go. I don't think that 90 or 91 or even 92 is the ultimate high for the US yen. I think that these yen crosses have a lot more in them if they choose to go. And so for that reason, I did want to get back into a yen trade. And what I actually did was I went with the odd yen instead of jumping right back into the US yen. And there's a few reasons for that. The main reason is just because there's more pip potential. Now that I've kind of studied where this yen can go, it looks like the odd yen has a little more potential than the US yen for a little long-term target. And I'll scroll over and show you what I mean by that. Alright, and so you can see the odd yen obviously pretty similar to the US yen with this very steep move. Came down, tested pretty nicely right on this top, and like the US yen is now looking to close above it and continue moving up. What I like about the odd yen is just that the pip count is a lot more during this move. It went a lot more than the US yen, and so for every daily bar that goes in my direction, it can be worth a lot more pips. Where the stop loss was pretty similar, and so for that reason, I went ahead and took the odd yen, and also because the odd, especially when you look at the odd dollar, looks like it's trying to push higher. The odd may be showing some more strength than the US dollar, and so for that reason, the odd cross with the yen made it a little more appealing to me. And then one other reason is when you think about the odd and how it's relatively close to the 100 mark here, I start thinking, well, maybe 100 is a reasonable target, and so that's about 600 plus pips away for the odd yen. And if it rallies to that area, obviously any trade that has a 600 pip target and a relatively small stop loss, 80 pips or something is about what mine is, you start thinking that there's some real potential in a long-term, very profitable trade. And so for that reason, I went ahead, I took the odd long pretty close to the bottom here, pretty close to the retest. I think it's up around 70 pips right now in my count. And so I'm looking to see if I can get this thing to rally. Now again, it's not an extremely high probability trade because there is some reversal signs here. But when you have that kind of risk-reward potential, at least in my case, I like the idea of going ahead and risking a little bit of money to see if you can catch the next surge of a big move like the yen weakness. Another pair I just want to quickly cover because I don't want to miss it is the euro pound. Obviously, just setting up here with some very small movements. Today was a bullish bar right back inside that brought us right around to 83.03. And so again, very similar to the euro dollar, if this thing heads down, I'll definitely want to look to take it back long at a better price, but nothing for me to get involved with at the current moment. And then my favorite pair, which I say very sarcastically, is this USD CAD, because it really still has not made a nice move. And so again, just waiting for any kind of move out of this area, any break, any momentum, anything for possible USD CAD trade. But right now, just not seeing anything. Alright guys, so that's the last pair I'll cover today. I appreciate you guys checking out the analysis. I hope that you got some helpful information, and as always, any shares and comments are very important, and we really appreciate them, and I'll talk to you guys soon.